Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and today we're unpacking a really fascinating stack of historical archives, trail logs, and biographical notes.
Hey everyone. And yeah, I have to say these sources are just incredible to read through.
They really are. Our mission today isn't just to recount some vintage survival story. We are going to figure out how a schoolteacher from Troy, New York, completely dismantled the rugged boys' club of the Adirondacks.
Right. In the 1930s, no less.
Exactly. We're talking about Grace Hudowalski, the first woman to summit all 46 high peaks. But before we get into how she essentially wrote the blueprint for modern outdoor recreation, I want you to imagine something for a second.
Okay, let's hear it.
Picture yourself standing at the base of, well, some of the most rugged, unforgiving terrain in North America. You're staring up at thousands of feet of jagged rock, dense, primeval forest, and, weather systems that have a reputation for turning completely hostile.
Right. With zero warning. Just a total whiteout.
Yeah, exactly. Now, strip away your moisture-wicking base layers. Hand over your smartphone with the GPS, the topographical maps, and the real-time radar.
Which is terrifying for most of us today.
Oh, absolutely. And just to make it truly authentic to the era we're looking at, you don't even get to wear standard hiking pants. You are looking down at a heavy, restrictive, ankle-length skirt.
I mean, it sounds like a stress dream. Or like a particularly cruel reality show.
It really does. But that was the actual waking reality for Grace. Okay, let's unpack this. Attempting to climb 46 unmaintained mountains in the 1930s as a woman is like trying to navigate a modern tech career using only a typewriter.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. I mean, the environment simply wasn't built for you, the infrastructure was non-existent, and the literal gear was working actively against you.
What's fascinating here is that this isn't just a story about hiking. When you read through the historical notes, you realize it's this profound case study on how individual determination can force a societal paradigm shift.
Yeah, she took a space that was implicitly reserved for a very specific type of hardened male explorer and just claimed it.
Claimed it entirely because we're so accustomed to curated wilderness today, paved trailheads, color-coded markers, ranger stations.
Yeah, the safety nets.
Exactly. The sources describe climbing in the 1930s as brutal, pioneering work. You were bushwhacking. If a storm rolled in, there was no satellite beacon to hit for helicopter rescue.
You're just out there, entirely reliant on your own physical stamina.
And your navigational intuition. It was an environment that demanded absolute grit just to survive one peak, let alone conquer 46 of them.
Which brings up a detail in these notes that I really struggle to wrap my head around. The sources say she was a school teacher.
Yes, a school teacher from Troy.
And the text says she just caught the bug for climbing. I have to push back on that phrasing a bit.
Oh, how so?
Well, catching the bug implies it was this fun, casual hobby. But people often think of mountaineers as these grizzled, lifelong survivalists. How does a teacher suddenly transition to facing down deadly weather on a whim?
Right, it doesn't seem to fit the stereotype.
Exactly. To willingly subject yourself to primeval forests in a heavy wool skirt doesn't sound like a hobby. There must have been an incredible internal drive there.
It's tempting to view her through our modern lens, as this deliberate, loud rebellion. But the psychology here is actually much more structured.
Structured how?
Well, it's only a contradiction if you buy into that 1930s propaganda of what a mountaineer is supposed to be. The guy wrestling bears.
Right, the lumberjack archetype.
Exactly. But if you look at the actual logistics of climbing 46 trackless mountains, a teacher is actually the perfect profile for the job.
Wait, really? A teacher? Because she's used to dealing with chaotic classrooms.
I mean, maybe a little bit of that, but it's more about how a teacher's brain works. Think about what teaching actually is. It's the process of breaking down massive, seemingly impossible subjects into daily manageable lesson plans.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, teachers possess this fundamental belief in incremental progress. She didn't look at 46 mountains and panic. She essentially created a syllabus for the wilderness.
A syllabus for the wilderness. That makes so much sense.
Right. The discipline it takes to plan routes without modern maps, to systematically check off peaks over several years, that isn't a whim. That is highly organized ambition.
She was applying academic rigor to wilderness survival, but that disciplined preparation was put to the ultimate test when you consider the physical constraints she was under.
You mean the clothing?
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting. The text specifically notes that she initially climbed these mountains in dresses and skirts because, well, that was just standard women's attire at the time.
It was expected of her, yeah.
Let's think about the actual physics of that for a second. The sheer discomfort.
The physics are highly punishing.
Right. Wool and heavy cotton retain water. So if it rains, or even if you're just brushing against wet vegetation all morning, that fabric gets soaked.
And incredibly heavy.
Exactly. You are stepping over massive fallen logs. You're scrambling up sheer rock faces on your hands and knees, pushing through dense brush. And you are doing it surrounded by yards of heavy fabric that is catching on every single branch.
The chafing alone must have been unbearable.
Seriously, how much extra mental and physical energy does it take to literally fight your own clothing while fighting the mountain?
It is a massive caloric and psychological drain. We talk about camping gear in the 1930s being primitive, but for women, the required attire was actively punitive.
Actively punitive, that's a good way to put it.
Because the skirt wasn't just a piece of clothing, it was a physical manifestation of the societal constraints of the time.
Right. Women were supposed to be indoors.
Exactly. Especially in respectable professions like teaching. You are expected to embody decorum and domesticity. But the wilderness is wild, unpredictable, and dirty.
It's basically society's way of saying, fine, go play in the woods, but you must remain tethered to our rules of propriety.
That is exactly what it was. And that is why her finally completing the 46 peaks in 1937 is such a monumental victory.
Yeah, 1937. Just think about the world back then.
Pre-World War II, still shaking off the Great Depression. It was a victory over elevation and weather, sure, but most importantly, over the literal fabric of her society.
She proved that internal drive could overcome both nature and those heavy, restrictive expectations.
She really did.
So she summits the 46th peak in 1937. She has essentially hacked the system and done the impossible. But the most fascinating part of these historical notes isn't actually the climb itself.
No, it's what she does next.
Right, because she doesn't just check the last mountain off her list, dust off her skirt, and quietly go back to True.
Not at all. Her achievement in 1937 was merely the prologue. The sources detail how she immediately pivoted from personal conquest to massive community building.
It seems like she essentially open-sourced mountaineering.
Open-sourced, I like that.
Yeah, like she didn't just write the code for climbing the 46 peaks. She published the documentation so anyone else could compile it themselves.
That's a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Think about the logistics of organizing this without modern communication.
How do you even coordinate a meetup back then?
Right, or verify a summit. Grace started organizing trips and actively encouraging others to hike. She didn't just tell people to go outside, she provided the framework.
Which culminated in her helping to found the official Adirondack 46ers Club.
Exactly.
And I want to dig into that club for a second because, the word club can sometimes imply exclusivity, like a private country club. But the 46ers Club functioned as the exact opposite, didn't it?
Yes, it was a registry that entirely democratized the achievement.
So what does this all mean? To me, it means she wasn't just climbing the ladder and pulling it up behind her. She built an elevator for everyone else. She went from being the exception to creating the rule.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, by forming the club, Grace and her peers established a system where anyone could officially document their journey. Not just elite athletes or wealthy explorers.
They set up those physical logbooks, right?
Yeah, in mason jars at the summits. And they ran massive letter-writing campaigns. Grace personally corresponded with hundreds, eventually thousands, of aspiring climbers over the years.
Wow, thousands of letters.
She became known as the Queen of the 46ers. But it was a title she earned through relentless service, not ego.
That transition is just profound to me because a lot of people can achieve personal conquest. It takes massive drive to be the first at something, but sometimes that ego isolates the pioneer.
I want to be the only one who did it.
Exactly. But Grace took that drive and channeled it entirely into mentorship. She built the on-ramp for everyone else.
And that mentorship had to evolve too. As we move into the post-World War II era, outdoor recreation just boomed.
Oh, sure. Everyone had cars, more leisure time.
Right. So suddenly, the problem wasn't getting people up the mountains. It was protecting the mountains from the sheer volume of people.
Because once you open source the mountains, they get crowded. The trails get eroded, the alpine vegetation gets trampled.
Yeah, you conquer a mountain, but then you realize you have to be its steward. The sources highlight that she spent decades fighting to protect the high peaks.
That stewardship is such a critical part of her legacy.
It really is. She shifted the human relationship with nature from an adversarial one, woman, versus mountain to a reciprocal one. The mountains gave her this profound sense of agency, And in return, she gave them her lifelong protection.
And when we say lifelong, we really mean it. The notes highlight that Grace lived to the remarkable age of 103.
103, spanning almost the entire 20th century.
Just think of the technological change she witnessed in that time. She saw the invention of nylon, Gore-Tex, GPS, the internet.
Yet she never stopped talking about the fundamental lessons of the high peaks.
Right. It wasn't just a phase she went through in her youth. It became her operating system for life.
It's incredibly rare to see someone maintain that level of ideological consistency for a century. The sources actually highlight 3 specific principles she constantly reiterated to new climbers.
Oh, right. Perseverance, friendship, and the importance of giving back.
Exactly. Those 3 core philosophies.
Which make perfect sense when you look at the mechanics of her climbs. I mean, perseverance, obviously. You don't bushwhack 46 peaks in a wet skirt without a high tolerance for misery.
Definitely not.
And friendship. You literally cannot survive a sudden whiteout or a washed-out trail in the 1930s without deeply trusting the people you're hiking with.
Your survival depends on them.
And giving back. Well, that's the whole legacy of the 46ers Club and her conservation efforts.
She viewed nature not as a playground or a gym, but as a classroom for life skills. And by doing so, she shattered the illusion that you had to fit a certain demographic profile to belong out there.
Anyone could learn from the mountains.
Right. Whether you are a seasoned survivalist or a city-dwelling school teacher, the mountains offer a brutal but fair education, provided you are willing to do the work.
And the incredible thing is, access to that education is still there today. The sources mention how palpable her legacy remains in the Adirondacks.
Oh, you could still feel it.
Anyone who stands on summits like Marcy or Algonquin today can feel that same timeless pull. It's a direct lineage to Grace.
And thankfully, you don't have to bushwhack from scratch anymore.
True, the modern infrastructure is there now. Actually, places like the Alpine Homestead serve as a present-day starting point, literally right in the backyard of the high peaks.
It's much more accessible now.
Yeah, anyone can lace up their boots, pick an easier trail, and step into that exact same wilderness Grace navigated all those years ago.
It's a powerful continuity. You can look up at those same jagged peaks today and know that you are participating in a tradition of self-discovery that Grace helped to build.
Every trail marker, every conservation rule, every logbook is just a downstream effect of her deciding that the wilderness was meant to be shared.
That is exactly her legacy.
Which brings me directly to you listening to this deep dive right now. You have to wonder, if a mountain can teach a 1930s school teacher about friendship and giving back, what are the challenges in your life teaching you right now?
That's a great question to ask yourself.
Have you ever pushed yourself on a big hike, or looked at a massive project at work, or a personal goal that felt utterly impossible just because you didn't look like the type of person who usually succeeds at it?
It's a vital reflection, really. We all have our own version of the 46 peaks.
We do.
And often, the biggest barrier isn't the steepness of the climb. It's the internalized belief that we don't belong on the mountain in the first place. Grace's story dismantles that self-doubt completely.
Completely. So to bring our mission full circle today, we set out to understand how Grace Hudowalski changed the landscape of the Adirondacks.
And we definitely found our answer.
We found a school teacher from Troy, armed with a syllabus-like mindset and a highly impractical wardrobe, who tackled a deadly, unmapped wilderness.
She transformed herself into the Queen of the 46ers, living to 103, and permanently altering how we interact with nature.
She didn't just reach the summit, she made sure the path was documented, protected, and open for the thousands coming up behind her.
She proved that true leadership is taking an environment that is actively hostile to you, mastering it, and then leaving it better and more accessible than you found it.
That is beautifully said. And that leaves us with a final thought to mull over today. Grace didn't wait for the invention of lightweight gear. She didn't wait for accurate weather forecasting.
And she certainly didn't wait for society to give her permission.
Exactly. She just climbed in the clothes she had, with the tools she had. It makes you wonder, what impossible ascent are you currently talking yourself out of, just because you feel like you don't have the perfect setup or the right gear for it?
Something to think about next time you're facing a steep climb.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Your next great adventure, whether it's a physical mountain or a metaphorical one, starts with just a single step.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
The Alpine Homestead has brought this episode to you. Book your stay and play at thealpinehomestead.com. If you're visiting the Adirondacks or the surrounding areas, again, book your stay and book your play at thealpinehomestead.com. We'll see you next time around the fire.